guys, Penna Daily here with my 10th anniversary video. Hoo boy, how the time does fly, which is why this video is 2 days late. You may notice this one's also a bit different from before. Since usually I have these running over game footage, I'll get to that. And yes, my avatar's had a makeover. I'll get to that too. And I am still going to do my year in review and overview of where I hope to go with the year going forward, but before that, I want to go into some other things. So for a little background, I was an elementary school child in the 80s, and I am cis female. This is important for one main reason. Being a highly verbal girl in the 80s with a love of books meant that my ADHD and autism went completely undiagnosed. No blame for anyone involved in this situation. The information was just not available at the time, and frankly, I'm not sure how many treatment options would have been available to me anyway. I did well in school, and the adults all loved me, and so no one really thought to address that I had the social skills of a plastic trout. Then we hit adolescence and hormones entered the picture. Some of you may be aware that in people who experience menstruation, the biochemical changes that come around that time can cause ADHD symptoms to worsen, right at the time in your life when you're starting to deal with more responsibilities and things to keep track of. Whee! I coped by having the social life of the aforementioned plastic trout and relying on the fact that I was very good at memorizing shit to continue getting through school, which was the important thing. Pretend I did the air quotes, it's hard to do with flippers. My dad died my senior year of high school, and people with ADHD are prone to anxiety and depression anyway. It was at this point that I got on A, birth control, which mitigated hormonal mood swings, and later on, Wellbutrin. I went through roughly the next decade pretty much getting by on a combination of those meds, plus avoiding responsibility where possible, and self-medicating with caffeine and adrenaline when it wasn't. I was starting to notice issues handling daily life as compared to my peers, but nothing was ever insurmountable. And then in 2016, my job disappeared out from under me. This is, of course, where the Let's Play channel comes in. I started it to keep myself focused and busy because of that whole tendency to depression thing. It was also probably the beginnings of ADHD burnout, but I digress. And then I moved back home to live with my mother for financial reasons and because the job market was sort of better there. The next 10 years were a bit of an employment roller coaster. When I lost my job in 2018, I did some research and got diagnosed with ADHD. I was 40. They put me on Strattera, and it really did make a huge difference, as the Skies of Arcadia LP showed. My next job got torpedoed by the ADHD burnout coming home to roost like a very vengeful Skarmory. I was miserable there for a number of reasons, most of which I have no one to blame for but the health insurance company. 2 40-milligram pills twice a day is not clinically the same as one 80-milligram pill once a day, damn it. Now I'm approaching 50, and like many other women in my family, I'm also approaching menopause. Guess what? Menopause also screws with ADHD symptoms, plus after 7 years I'd built up a tolerance to the Strattera and hadn't quite realized it. When I wound up resigning from my most recent position due to various reasons, I talked to the doctor about changing my meds, and they put me on Vyvanse. And it has been a revelation. I've noticed improvement immediately. You may well have too, since I started about a month before the ARIA replay. But the improvements have kept coming, and some of you may remember my intro to Sonic Frontiers, where I talked about my dyspraxia and shit reflexes, how I am, in fact, a disabled gamer, and how it took me a long time to really come to terms with that, considering all the baggage around the idea of disability. And it's the same thing with the autism and ADHD. Even after my diagnosis, given my 40 years prior, I still had this nagging feeling that I just wasn't trying hard enough, that things slipped through my grasp because I just wasn't motivated or didn't care. The ease with which I'm doing things that I just didn't or couldn't before totally makes it clear that no, it wasn't just a failure of willpower or motivation or whatever. If I were just lazy, it wouldn't be so suddenly effortless to go, I should clean out my sock drawer, and then just sit down and do it. To look at the bottles of pop on my desk and take them down while there's still only a couple, rather than enough to need an entire bag. To pick stuff up off the floor when I notice it, and hell, actually noticing it without being told. I'm talking about this because, one, I know some of my viewers may be struggling with any of this, and so I want you to know you're not alone. And also that no, your brain really is just not cooperating with you. Medication may be the answer, or it may not. Unfortunately, everybody's internal soup is different, so you'll have to find what works for you. But I want you to know that you're not lazy, you're not just not trying. This is real, and it can get better. I also want to talk about this because the burnout and ADHD issues have affected my Let's Playing. You've seen it in how I've done fewer projects in a year, and they all tend to be short. With the new meds and my brain adjusting, I'm hoping to improve that a little, though I don't know how much. There's a lot of projects and stuff vying for my time and brain power, but I do enjoy this, so I'm not quitting. That leads into the changes in this video. I've been working on some of my other hobbies, like drawing. Here, hence you getting an actual hand-drawn picture of the penguin for background on this. I'm not good, but I enjoy it, and that's what matters. I've been experimenting with digital inking and coloring, and it's here. The penguin's color scheme has changed in a way that I've actually been planning for quite some time. I make no secret on this channel that I'm aromantic and asexual. I know it took me about 30 years to learn that either of those were even a thing, so if I can help somebody else with that light bulb, I like to talk about it. So I remade my penguin avatar to be in the colors of the ace and arrow flags. Not the arrow ace flag. That one looks like it was color picked from pictures of Sonic and Tails, and I'm just not as fond of it. So, on to the usual stuff. This year I had 4 projects. 5 if you count the SMZ rando runs as separate, I guess. They were all fun to do, in part because there weren't any of them in depth. Throes of the Watchmaker was great. I love that whole game and replay it for fun sometimes. I may come back and do more SMZ runs in the future for filler, but we'll have to see. Redoing Aria was actually really enjoyable, and it cemented my desire to do some other replays later on. Like maybe regular Super Metroid, I don't know. And I've been playing with GameCube emulation, so maybe Skies of Arcadia Legends? And given how much I enjoyed Sonic Adventure DX, SA2 is on the plate, as well as Shadow Generations, if I can ever beat the goddamn Egg Dragoon in Sonic's campaign. My next project, though, which should be starting in early April, is going to be the Switch version of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. I love this RPG. I love some of the things the Switch remake has added or changed, and I can probably finish the main campaign. Super bosses are still up in the air, as super guarding is still a challenge. But that's the situation as it stands. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and thank you for following me on this decade-long journey whenever it is you came in. I hope we all have a lot of fun going forward. So until next time, this is Penna Daly saying, hey, let's be careful out there.